Good evening/afternoon, everyone. It's Steve Lookner with Right Side Broadcasting coming to you with some breaking news. President Trump has announced on Twitter just in the last few minutes that he is firing Veterans Affairs Secretary David Shulkin and replacing David Shulkin with the White House Dr. Ronny Jackson. This personnel change in the cabinet had been rumored for a while, and there was rumors that it might happen this week, and it in fact has happened this week. So David Shulkin out as Veterans Affairs Secretary, being replaced with Dr. Ronny Jackson. You might remember Dr. Jackson from his press conference. I believe it was about a month or two ago when, during the White House press briefing, he came up and talked about President Trump's physical and answered questions for a very long time about President Trump's physical. That was Dr. Jackson. And let me first show you what President Trump tweeted out about this. Well, let me first just make sure my sound is working here. House press sounds like you can hear me. So here's what President Trump tweeted. He didn't even tweet that. So I'd heard on television that David Shulkin found out about this from President Trump tweeting about it. But he didn't tweet that. He didn't tweet the word Shulkin is fired. He just said, I am pleased to announce that I intend to nominate highly respected Admiral Ronny L. Jackson, MD, as the new Secretary of Veterans Affairs, which would imply that the old secretary is out. And then he said, in the interim, Honorable Robert Wilkie of Department of Defense will serve as acting secretary. I am thankful to Dr. David Shulkin's service to our country and to our great veterans. So, with that, at 5:31 p.m., President Trump announced that David Shulkin out as Veterans Affairs Secretary, the new secretary, assuming Ronny Jackson is confirmed. I believe the Senate has to confirm Ronny Jackson. I see no reason why they wouldn't confirm Ronny Jackson. By the way, aren't the cabinet confirmations no longer filibusterable? Am I right about that? Hey, let me look that up. I always forget. Can Senate filibuster? I think the answer is no. Cabinet nominees. I think that's been done away with. Yeah, that's those rules were changed under the Obama administration. That you can't filibuster, the Senate can't filibuster cabinet nominees. So all you need is 51 votes to pass. DM made a donation. DM said, fired by Twitter like McMaster. How rude. And then he has like a smiley face emoticon. Thank you, DM, for the donation. If you like Right Side Broadcasting, we are viewer supported. So you can do what DM did if you want to support us. Go to the bottom of the YouTube chat and click on the $ at the bottom of the YouTube chat. Or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. We want to hear what you think about this firing of David Shulkin. What do you think about it? Give me a shout on Twitter, at Lookner, at Lookner, at Lookner on Twitter. We're going to read your comments in a second. And hold on, I just want to call the broadcast up here. Oops. I want to make sure I have the Periscope open as well as the YouTube chat. Give me 1 second here. Okay, that's open now. Wonderful. Also, hang on. I want to thank the moderators real quick. We got JC moderating in the chat room right now. So JC, thank you, and Common Sense and Gleno on the website chat. Hey, so before we get into your comments, I want to show you a little background. So, Shulkin was fired. There's several reasons that have been cited for his firing. One is that he's been getting a lot of bad press for a trip he took to Europe last summer. And there was I know at least one Inspector General's report accused him of impropriety on this trip. It was supposed to be a work trip, and it was a work trip, at least in part. But one thing that happened on the trip is he accepted Wimbledon tickets, and that was not proper, according to the Inspector General. And also, supposedly, his chief of staff misled investigators about his wife's travel plans, and then there was some criticism that the trip cost too much, and or that the trip had too much leisure stuff involved as a percentage of the trip, and not enough percentage was devoted to work-related activities. So that got a lot of press, the whole work trip to Europe thing from last summer. And also, David Shulkin, there'd been some infighting between David Shulkin and some other people in his department in Veterans Affairs, and it looks like he lost the infighting. I'm going to get you some of the background on that right now. So another thing, a policy issue is the administration supposedly wants to make healthcare within the Veterans Administration more privatized, and David Shulkin doesn't really go along with their proposals, at least to the extent they want to. So there are these different issues floating around. I don't know exactly why President Trump decided to fire him, but let's just look at some of the details here. I thought there was a nice summary, actually, in the New York Times today about this. Veterans Affairs Secretary is latest to go as Trump shakes up cabinet. Now we already showed you President Trump's tweet. They point out that there's been a number of personnel changes lately. So National Security Advisor McMaster out recently, Secretary of State Tillerson out recently, Gary Cohn, Chief Economic Advisor, replaced recently. Who am I forgetting? Am I forgetting somebody? I don't know. Well, that's a few. What was it? Now they say Mr. Shulkin is a politically moderate former hospital executive who delivered Mr. Trump a string of bipartisan legislative victories at a time when he was struggling to find them. That's what the New York Times says. I believe Shulkin was originally appointed under Obama. Let me just get confirmation of that. Shulkin. Let me just confirm that. I don't like being 90% sure. Yes, he was appointed originally by Barack Obama as actually, you know what? He was Undersecretary of Veterans Affairs. This is interesting. He was under Obama. He was the Undersecretary of Veterans Affairs, and he was made Secretary of Veterans Affairs by President Trump. Okay, well, see, I was wrong then. He was originally appointed by Obama, but he was nominated by President Trump to be the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. There we go. There's the clarification. It's interesting. They say Mr. Trump, who made veterans issues and overhauling the scandal-ridden department a focal point of his campaign, showered Dr. Shulkin with praise at a bill signing ceremony last year in June. Mr. Trump teased that the secretary need never worry about hearing his apprentice-era catchphrase, "You're fired." Now, one might argue that was before the whole trip scandal happened and before, these policy disputes came about and this internal infighting came about. Anyways, let me show you some of the stuff about the infighting here. In recent months, says the New York Times, a group of conservative Trump administration appointees at the White House and the department began to break with the secretary and plot his ouster. At issue was how far and how fast to privatize health care under the department's health system, a long-sought goal for conservatives. The officials, who included Dr. Shulkin's press secretary and assistant secretary for communications, along with the top White House domestic policy aide, came to consider Dr. Shulkin, who had run the health program under President Barack Obama, and his top deputy, as obstacles to one of the administration's policy goals. Let's see here. The secretary's troubles only grew when what had been an internal power struggle burst into the open in February after the department's inspector general, as I mentioned, issued a scathing report describing serious derelictions related to a trip Dr. Shulkin took last year to Britain and Denmark. Critics of the secretary seized on the report to try to hasten his removal. Dr. Shulkin, fearing a coup, went public with a warning about officials trying to undermine the department from within and cut off those he saw as disloyal. So lots of infighting in the Department of Veterans Affairs involving David Shulkin recently. Continuing on about the infighting here and about the tension, at the White House, senior officials came to believe that Dr. Shulkin had misled them about the contents of the Inspector General's report. And the secretary's public declarations only further aggravated top officials who felt Dr. Shulkin had gone too far in commenting on internal politics with news outlets and had opened the administration to sharp criticism over his trip to Europe, which the report said cost more than $122,000. Let's see here. In short order, Dr. Shulkin began markedly curtailing his public profile, cutting off communications with reporters and isolating himself from top deputies he viewed to be disloyal. So there's a lot of infighting going on between Dr. Shulkin and other people in his department and in the White House who were not fans of Dr. Shulkin, as you can see. One other thing here I want to say. According to the New York Times, Dr. Shulkin remained overwhelmingly popular on Capitol Hill, where the Senate unanimously confirmed him last year, and among the veterans groups that have traditionally held outside influence in Washington. In recent weeks, leaders from both parties publicly and privately signaled their support, even as rumors of his replacement appeared in news reports. And they ultimately say here, Dr. Shulkin's departure could clear the way for a more aggressive push for government-subsidized private care at the department. But Congress will have the final say. So a lot of reasons for this firing floating around. We have, some people think President Trump is really upset about this trip scandal where some people think too much money was spent on this European trip that David Shulkin took, and his wife came on the trip and it was supposed to be a work trip. Some people think too much money was spent. The Inspector General's report said there were some improprieties on the trip. So there's that aspect of it, and I'm guessing President Trump wasn't happy with that publicity. At the same time, there were some policy differences between the White House and David Shulkin, and it sounds like there were some personality differences, or at least infighting between David Shulkin and other people, and some people, at least one aide at the White House, and some other people in the Veterans Affairs Office. So who knows which of these and in how much proportion was responsible for the firing? I heard people on MSNBC speculating this firing was to distract the country from the Mueller investigation. I find it hard to believe that would be the reason. I don't personally think that most people in the country really follow David Shulkin that closely. So I can't imagine that would be the chief reason for firing David Shulkin, is to distract the country. But that's what some people on MSNBC were saying. Anyways, I'd love to hear what you think about all this. Write to me on Twitter, @Lookner. We're going to take your comments, @Lookner on Twitter. And thank you. James Wolfe made a donation. James Wolfe said, MAGA, RSBN, and President Trump. I think somebody else made a donation. I hope I didn't miss it. DM, we got your donation. Okay. I got all the donations. There's one other thing I wanted to show you real quick before I get to your comments. Here's if you want to know more about the scandal, you can Google and you'll find articles like this. So this is an article from Vox, which is from February, saying the Veteran Affairs Secretary's Eurotrip scandal explained. They say the Inspector General's report found that he improperly accepted Wimbledon tickets, that his chief of staff misled officials about Shulkin's wife's travel to Europe. According to the report, Shulkin's chief of staff doctored an email to create a justification for the VA to subsidize travel for Shulkin's wife. I also saw some criticism claiming that too much leisure time was spent on this trip. I've read about this trip before, but I really forget a lot of it, so I'm by no means an expert on this trip. But feel free to Google it if you want to get into the details of this scandal. I feel like I remember Shulkin denying a bunch of these charges, but again, off the top of my head, I can't give you all the details. And let me show you a picture. This is a photo of Ronnie Jackson. This is him, I think, at that White House press briefing. I think that's him at the White House press briefing. That's the one where he's the White House doctor. He's going to be the new Secretary of Veterans Affairs once he's confirmed, and he gave that at the press briefing a couple months ago, I think it was. Sarah Sanders let him talk and answer questions about the president's physical, which took a long time. But we want to hear from you guys. So, what do you think about this firing and replacement? Give Give me a shout on Twitter, at Lookner, at Lookner. Let me see if there are any comments yet from you guys. Inkjet Blue says, we trust Sarah Palin into energy and Secretary Perry into the VA positions. Now, there were rumors out there about Secretary Perry, Energy Secretary, being nominated for the VA Secretary position, but that's not going to happen because President Trump has already said White House Dr. Ronnie Jackson is going to be the new Veterans Affairs Secretary. Menorcan writes in, Menorcan says, our viewer, OMG, I hope this doesn't screw up the excellent care my spouse gets at the Boise VA Medical Center. I was like, Boise, Virginia. Boise VA Medical Center. And I think Menorcan is not being sarcastic here. I think Menorcan is being serious here. Jasmine Guthrie says, she wrote 11 minutes ago, what's the motive for firing Shulkin? Well, we just talked about some of the possible motives, Jasmine, so if you're watching, I assume you're all caught up now. Our viewer, Reno Doral, said, haha, good. The guy was clearly not doing his job. We are taking your comments on the air here at Right Side Broadcasting as we talk about this story where David Shulkin fired as VA Secretary. Let me see if I can get you, if there's any more news updates on this coming in the last few minutes. Oh, wow, this is a breaking news story. We might have to do a stream on this after this stream. Computers at Boeing have been infected with WannaCry ransomware, extent of impact not yet known. Well, as soon as this stream is over, I'm going to read up on that. Just so you know, keeping our eyes on that from BNO News. But let's stick on this. Let's stick on this story for now, and maybe we'll do another stream about that in a little bit. Caitlin Collins from CNN posted this. She says, there were lots of names floated in the search to replace David Shulkin as VA Secretary, Energy Secretary Rick Perry, Pete Hegseth, etc. I'm not sure anyone predicted it would be the president's physician. Then she also says, that said, we should have seen this coming from 1,500 miles away. Look at this graphic that Fox posted. Big graphic. Big font, Fox News. Wonder if there's anything on David Shulkin's Twitter page about this. Let's see. Nope, nothing on David Shulkin's Twitter page. I wonder if people have commented on his and saying, like, nice job or something. No, no one commented on that last tweet. Our viewer Dave tweets about this. Trump wants results. By the way, if you want to know when we're coming on the air with these live streams, subscribe to us and follow us on our different platforms. So on YouTube, Right Side Broadcasting, click the notifications bell when you subscribe. Facebook, Right Side Broadcasting. Twitter, at RSB Network. And Periscope, RSBN TV. We are taking your comments about the firing of David Shulkin. You can write to me on Twitter, at Lookner. And also, I'm going to keep an eye on that Boeing story where this ransomware has affected Boeing computers. Oh, I was going to see if I could get you any more, if there were any updates out there on Shulkin. Just peeking here through some stuff. I'm looking at the AP story to see if they have anything different. They say President Trump had not. Trump had been considering replacements for Shulkin for weeks, but he had not been known to be considering his physician, Ronnie Jackson, for the role. And they say Shulkin was fired, as we discussed, in the wake of a bruising ethics scandal and a mounting rebellion within the agency. Here's a little more details on the travel scandal thing. Shulkin had continued to insist he had the full confidence of the White House amid continuing investigations over his travel and leadership of the department. He had agreed to reimburse the government more than $4,000 after the VA's internal watchdog concluded last month that he had improperly accepted Wimbledon tennis tickets and that his then chief of staff had doctored emails to justify his wife traveling to Europe with him at taxpayer expense. Shulkin also blamed internal drama at the agency on a half dozen or so political appointees who were rebelling against him and Bowman, insisting he had White House backing to fire them. Oh, there was this other thing where he wanted to get rid of some people in the department. But an AP says, but the continuing VA infighting in a fresh raft of VA watchdog reports documenting leadership failures and spending waste, as well as fresh allegations being reviewed by the IG that Shulkin used a member of his security detail to run personal errands, proved too much of a distraction. So there's that allegation as well. The sudden departure, says AP, comes as Trump is currently seeking to expand the Veterans Choice Program, a campaign promise that major veterans groups worry could be an unwanted step toward privatizing VA health care. His plan remains in limbo in Congress after lawmakers declined last week to include it in a spending bill. Hey, let's Google Veterans Choice Program for a second. I'm trying to find something neutral here. Well, this is all about an existing program. I'm trying to find the Trump proposal. Hey, thank you, Carl Peterson, for your donation. Carl says, Trump will be the last man standing. MAGA. Thank you, Carl. Here's an article about it. Trump touts extension of veterans' private health care program. Oh, it's a he had signed an extension back in last year of a bill to temporarily extend a program that lets some veterans seek medical care in the private sector. So President Trump wants to develop a more comprehensive plan to allow veterans to more easily go outside the VA health system for care. I don't know much about that. I'll have to read more on that. All right, let me just see if there's any more comments from you guys here. At Lookner on Twitter if you want to comment. Royal Kitty writes in, trust the plan. All right, I'm going to make last call for comments. We've gotten all your comments so far. Last call for comments on this story. Write to me on Twitter at Lookner. Maybe we'll do a stream on this Boeing story. I need to read a little more about it once I'm off the air on this stream. All right, I think we're going to wrap up this this stream in our YouTube chat. DW Bigley writes, "Who gets fired next week?" see what's going on in the Facebook chat as well. See if what they're talking about there. James Wolfe says Shulkin was not aggressive enough changing the VA. I'm happy. That's our viewer James Wolfe. Daniel Greep in the Facebook chat says Trump just installed another drain the swamp today. LOL. Randy Young in the Facebook chat says, Fire Week Jeff Sessions. Becky French says, Obama leftover. Michelle Stevens says, if you don't do your job, you're fired. It's about time. Brian DC says, why not Pete Hegseth? Here's Pete Hegseth. He's a Fox News Channel contributor. He served in the U.S. military with deployments to Cuba and Iraq. He was in consideration to head the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, but he was not chosen by President Trump today. And he was actually in consideration originally by the incoming administration, but they chose David Shulkin. All right, we are going to wrap up this stream once I make absolutely sure I've gotten to your messages. Yes, I've gotten your messages. So thank you for joining us for this stream. I'm going to go check out that Boeing news. We might do another stream on that in a little bit. If you want to know when we're going to come on the air with these streams, subscribe to us on or follow us on our social media. YouTube Right Side Broadcasting, Facebook Right Side Broadcasting. On YouTube, click the notifications bell if you subscribe. At RSB Network, Twitter, RSBN TV on Periscope. I will post about breaking news whenever I'm not on the air. So for more breaking news on Twitter, follow me at Lookner, at Lookner. Thank you so much to those who donated. We appreciate that. Your donations keep us on the air. We cannot survive without you. We are viewer supported. If you'd like to support Right Side Broadcasting, go to the bottom of the YouTube chat. Click on the little dollar sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat. Or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. Wheezy Lean in the Periscope chat says, we need to sue Shulkin and get our money back. Now, if you're talking about the travel money, he is paying some money back. Wheezy Lean, I think your name was. Thank you also to everybody who wrote in your comments and let me read them on the air and shared. Thank you so much. And thank you for saying thank you. Flying Eagle, Propus, Feather Mason, Laughing Old Woman, YouTube 13 Rooster, Penny, John, Light Switch, JC, great job moderating, Ron Stahlcup, DW, and everybody else there. DM, everybody else there in the chat. I'll read one more comment, by the way. Oh, it already disappeared. By the way, Ronnie, one of the commenters on Periscope said Ronnie Jackson was Obama's doctor too. So he is the physician to the president. He has been physician to the president since 2013. So he was Obama's doctor, and now he is President Trump's doctor. Well, I guess he's not going to be President Trump's doctor anymore because he's going to be VA secretary. All right, we're wrapping this up. Thank you for joining us. Watch out for more streams tonight. If there's breaking news, we might do one on the Boeing thing, but I got to go do more research on that. For now, this is Steve Lookner for Right Side Broadcasting. From all of us here, we hope you have a great night, and we will see you soon with more here at RSBN.